Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I am live back down on the floor. Can everybody hear and see me okay? That would be awesome if you can. Give me a shout out in the chat if you can, please. There we go. Richard, thank you. Everybody else? Can everybody else? Beautiful, beautiful. Well, this may be, and it's unbelievable given the circumstances over the weekend and things actually escalating right now between Israel and Iran. This is on pace for the lowest volume day of the year here. In fact, I was just talking to one of the brokers who stands right next to me here, and he said that it appears that all the big institutional players, they're out for the summer unless anything happens to, really take the market by storm, either on the upside or the downside. He said retail is really the only ones in here, and it is quiet as quiet could be. And I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that here too. I mean, I don't know if everybody can see what is going on around me. Um, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on, and I bet that you can all hear or not hear what is happening back here. So we're gonna dive right in here because there's really not much for me to show you right now, but I will if something happens here, I definitely will. So let me get the right screen up here, everybody. Does everybody know what first off what the Russell is? The Russell 1000, 2000, and 3000. Does everybody know what that is? And also, while you're answering, if you could subscribe, smash all that, that would be great. All that's going on down here on the on all the TVs here is just headlines of what's going on in Iran and Israel. Yes, small cap, exactly, Gus. Small cap. So let me run ahead here in my screen. Okay, so this is there's actually four different Russell ETFs, if you will. Okay, the Russell 1000 captures the largest, it's like the S&P 500, but expanded out to 1,000. The Russell 2000 includes all the 1,000 plus the next 1,000 largest companies. The Russell 3000, that is the one when people are referring to the Russell. Okay, that is what people are referring to. Yeah, that's a good one, Bear. So the Russell 3000 really represents the broad market from, you know, big cap to the tiniest companies that are out there. But it is a benchmark, just like the S&P 500, just like the NASI 100 and the Dow. It is a benchmark. It is a very, very closely watched benchmark with the companies being in here outside of the top 500 that are like in the S&P. Okay. Um, it is known as the small cap index. And so in general, when rates go higher, that's really bad on the small caps because the small caps typically have to borrow more money, whether it is for technology, capital expenditure, whatever it might be. So when rates go up, small caps usually get hit, vice versa. Okay. So what happens once a year, and that's actually changing. Okay. It's actually changing to two times a year for the first time ever. But for as long as the Russell's been around, and including right now, there is something called the Russell Reconstitution. Okay. And what that is every year, June 30th, so it's done after the second quarter, the Russell basically rebalances to make sure that it has the top 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 stocks in the index. So those that have lost value, they get thrown away. Those that have gained value, they're going to be added in. And what makes that so critical and makes that so important is because fund managers, you're maybe one of your guys' investment advisor that is in any sort of fund that tracks the Russell, they need to be in all of those stocks by June 30th. So they have to sell out what's going out, they have to buy what's coming in. Okay. And that happens actually up until now, one time a year, and it'll be 2 times a year starting this fall. So here's kind of an explanation of what I just talked about. And with, the equity market undergoing one of its most significant and closely watched events, which is the annual Russell Reconstitution. Okay, and like I said, it rebalances or realigns, I guess is a better word, the Russell 1, 2, and 3,000, as well as the micro caps. Okay. And it's done to just keep things up to speed. While it is it is so quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Hi, Steve. You can hear a pin drop here. That is unbelievable. But this is, the Reconstitution. It is closely watched. It is very, very anticipated by traders, fund managers, and companies because of the stocks coming in, the stocks coming out. So there is, I went through this, the 1, 2, 3,000 and the micro caps. Okay. And the reason this is so closely watched is because, as we know, the landscape is always, always shifting. Now we've seen tech, obviously, especially over the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, since that bottom in early April, tech has recovered and then some, right? Is actually now positive from what had happened earlier. But most of the tech we're talking about, okay, that's obviously going to be part of the Russell 1000. Okay, it's those smaller cap stocks in the 2000 and in the 3000 that have actually been lagging quite a bit. And they're lagging because of concerns of the economy, because rates are not coming down. Okay, so tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Wednesday, when the Fed comes out with their announcement, which is 90+% that they are not going to change rates at all, the Russell may see the biggest move. Okay, and if Powell and the Fed, if they become somewhat dovish, meaning let's say they don't lower rates right now, which more than likely they're not going to, but they signal that maybe, just maybe in July, or the more certainty in September, that could actually help the small caps, because if there are interest rate cuts coming, people are going to want to get in front of that. Okay. So the last time to trade the current Russell, if you're going to trade the Russell, or we trade in the room, we trade IWM. IWM is an ETF off of the Russell, just like SPY is a ETF based on the S&Ps, and the Qs is an ETF based on the NASDAQ. IWM is based off of the Russell. Okay, so these changes are out there, and they will happen after the close on Friday the 27th for trade on Monday the 30th. Now, you may not think it's that big of a deal, but it actually is, because if you look, as what I put up on the screen here, okay, there is $8.5 trillion in funds around the world that are tied to or benchmarked to the Russell indices. Okay, so that's $8.5 trillion under management, or whether it's individually managed, that if it is going to track the Russell, have to make those adjustments by June 27th. Okay, so leading up to that day, that is typically for the Russell one of the busiest days of the year. Last year, as I said here, the last trading day, so whatever that was last year, June 27th, 8th, whatever it was, $220 billion worth of stocks were traded right at the market close. So that's not even, anticipating or doing anything up to it. That's just, fund managers or investors saying, you know what, I'm just going to put these trades on at the close, and whatever happens, happens. I'm going to get into the stocks I need to get into, and that is going to be it. Okay, so it is really, really, really important. Okay, and as you can see on the bottom here, the final trading session before the annual realignment or reconstitution, what it's called, is typically one of the most active days of the year. Let's get to Thor. Thor is our new mascot, our new Market Minds mascot. Word of the day today is rut, and that's not because anyone's in a rut. That's because that is the symbol for the Russell. So RUT, let's get that on the wheel today. That's actually a really good picture of Thor, isn't it? Speaking of Thor, Jeff, for those of you that know Jeff, he ran a, I don't know, even know if it was not a marathon or a triathlon, whatever it was. I know it was 30 miles plus something else this weekend that he competed in and did very, very well. So he is recovering today, and he's not in the rooms today. Think he's just laying low with Thor. So anybody that's new in here today, yes, put your name, put your RUT in the chat, and we will get that onto the wheel for a chance to win. Can Thor keep up? Yeah, I think Thor can keep up. Yeah, Jeff's a big German Shepherd guy. Trains them for the police. So, all right, we'll come back to that again, but let's get to this right here. Okay. So these are in the Russell, the top 5 companies. I mean, these are the ones we know about and hear about all the time, right? So even with these companies right here, okay, even with these companies right here, there needs to be the shift. There needs to be trades made to balance how much of a particular stock is in an index that follows the Russell. So the top 5 here, they're the same as they were, but they've shifted places a little bit. So last year, Microsoft was number 1 by market cap. Now it's Apple. Microsoft and Apple just flip-flop spots 1 and 2. Nvidia stayed the same. And then Alphabet last year was 4, and you can see they dropped out of the top 5, and Meta popped in. Okay, and this is all as of May 30th. I don't think anything has changed since then. So even the big top stocks here, okay, which are the major players in the S&P, some are in the Dow, they're in the Russell, and obviously in the Nasdaq as well. So this is a process. This doesn't happen overnight. Okay, remember a couple weeks ago, we had a position on in oh man, I am losing my mind. We had a position on ahead of the S&P inclusion. Actually, it was ahead of the Nasdaq inclusion, and we were looking for a move. Oh, it was Robinhood. It was Robinhood. And we were looking for a big move one way or the other, whether it was going to get included or not included. And the stock ran up right before their earnings, got up to, I don't know what, 70, what, mid to high 70s. And then it wasn't last Friday, it was 2 Fridays ago. So a week ago Friday, when it was announced that they were not getting added in, the stock really, really dropped off considerably. It's rallied back since then, but it dropped off because now all those people that had tried to, let's call it, front run, right, the news coming out and get into the buying before all the fund managers and everyone had to buy it, all of a sudden they had to dump the stock. So that is what happened there. Now let me get to I know it's a blank screen here. And since I am back on the floor, I am looking, there we go. Okay, there we go. So here is the process, guys. Again, it doesn't happen just in one day. Okay, so on April 30th, okay, on April 30th, data is collected for all of the stocks to get their market cap. Okay, so the FTSE Russell, FTSE, that is who created the Russell and kind of manages it. They will rank all of the stocks. Okay, then a few weeks later, so towards the end of May 24th, there is a preliminary list. So people have a month ahead of time. There's a preliminary list of additions and deletions. Okay. And that is based on what their market cap is on May 24th. Now that can change because there is one full month. It's June 27th when it actually happens. So as you can see here, updated versions of those lists happen weekly until those final changes are locked in. Okay. And on June 9th this year, okay, membership changes were considered final, barring any extreme market anomalies. Okay, however, between June 9th and June 27th, and there's usually a couple each year that in that 2-week window there's usually a couple that change places. Okay, so it really is up until, that week or even that day until the Reconstitution that nobody really knows for 100% certainty which stocks are in, which stocks are out. Okay. Now, for us, what does that mean for us? We're not going to go out there and probably guess at this point. Okay. Unless it was done with the intent of having a position on that might work if you moved in either direction. Okay. However, what it will absolutely do is probably that week leading up. So next week, and then the deeper and deeper we get in towards next Friday, that volume is going to pick up. We'll probably see some volatility pick up, and there could be some good opportunity. Not necessarily in stocks that are being added or deleted, but just in general for any stock that is in the Russell. I saw him on Saturday. Okay, here we go, Thor. Any questions, anybody, on this or anything else? Definitely wanted to let everybody be aware of what is going to happen. Both on the same day, like we could just celebrate. Yeah, Thomas, that's a classic one. This is a great one of Thor. Okay, so I guess my question to everybody today, okay, based on what happened over the weekend, geopolitically with Israel and Iran, and what is literally happening as we speak right now, why does the market not seem to be concerned? Right? VIX, which spiked up, I shouldn't even say spiked up, but VIX, which topped 20 on Friday, which we hadn't seen for a while, is down $1.50 today. It's trading 1930 right now. Traded down to 1867. It's trading 1930. Like I said earlier, volume is atrocious. S&Ps, there's 465,000 contracts right now. Average day, there's about 1.5 million. Yes, John. In the history of the Russell, this is an annual event. However, they just changed the rules, and it is now a semi-annual event. So it will happen now, and it will also happen at the end of the year. Yeah, the war is priced in, but how many of you would have thought, me included, that with all of the oil disruption that happened Friday and over the weekend, how many of you would have thought that oil would have been skyrocketing today? And it's actually down a few bucks. Right? So it is really, really, really difficult to handicap the market based on a geopolitical event. Right? The complacency that is out here right now, and I will actually be talking about that on Fox Business this afternoon. The complacency that is out here is unbelievable. It is really, somebody wanted to scoop up, get some protection in the marketplace, whether it is upside VIX calls or S&P puts to the downside. Boy, I still think, as I've been saying, I still think vol is too cheap for what could happen. However, can't outsmart the market. The market doing nothing right now. I mean, S&Ps are up 60 points on just tiny, 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 tiny volume. So that kind of goes back to one of the things I talked about last week, especially in our coaches roundtable, for those of you that were around, that you cannot overtrade. You cannot force a trade. You cannot just want to be in the action. Everybody wants to be in the action. There are times for it, and there are times to just kind of sit back and watch. Vixpiration. What is Vixpiration? You mean expiration of VIX options, which happens on Wednesday mornings? Is that what you're asking about, Elisa? And yes, John, that is absolutely why. No, no. VIX expiration is really more a subset of what's going on with the S&P market, because remember what the VIX represents. The VIX represents, 30 days moving forward vol in the S&Ps. But I like that, though. I like the Vixpiration. We're going to have to use that. Thank you, Elisa. That's a good one. That is a really good one. All right, guys. Well, if there's no other questions, we're going to close up the wheel here. So you guys all have about 20 seconds to get into the wheel. Oil prices showing the war event is not going to scare an economic downturn globally. Okay. I like those comments. It'll sure be interesting this week to hear what Powell and the Fed have to say in terms of not just tariffs now, but how the war may impact things. And I think that they'll have more of a wait and see attitude because of that. And it'll be even more interesting because that comes out Wednesday afternoon. So the Fed decision is at 1:00 Central. Powell speaks at 1:30. And then don't forget, markets are closed on Thursday for Juneteenth. So we may see a little bit of added vol on Wednesday ahead of Powell, or even right after, because the market is closed on Thursday. Okay. But as you can see from the scenes behind me and from all the yawning happening back here, there's not much going on. A lot of complacency out here. Okay, the wheel is closed. There we go. Let's see what we got here for a Monday. Oh, all right, not too bad. Not too bad at all. All right, everybody's got a clean slate today. Okay, anybody that won last week, you can get back in the game today. So let's have a look. And well, Rocky Mountain, if you wanted to short the SPX right now with vol the way it is, I'd be buying puts, or I'd be buying put spreads, diagonal put spreads. Vol is too cheap. So I don't think you have an issue buying vol in the S&Ps. Gilbert is here. Gilbert, I know there were some issues in the past sending you things because you are up north of us in Canada, right? So we will make sure that that we have the proper shipping and address information. So please shoot me an email to what you see on the screen here, prosperswag@prospertrading.com. And if everybody can and will, I will be back down here in about 90 minutes. Right now, I'm in the S&P 500 pit. I'll be right next to us over there in the VIX pit for an interview with Liz Clayman and Fox Business. All right. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you being here. All right, everybody. I'm going to head back up to the office. I'll be in the rooms in a couple minutes. Appreciate everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.